Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another live edition of the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And of course, I am your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert. And for those of you that have watched the show, and even for those of you that aren't, as just to make sure you understand what you're watching, we highlight veterans from all over the country, veteran service providers and organizations to try and get the veteran community to stay in touch and get information out to veterans and their families. So we want to thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I also want to thank our regular audience because you guys have made the show what it is. We are listed among the top 25 podcasts here in Northern Virginia to watch. So that's a credit to our audience who continues to tune in to watch our episodes. And we really appreciate having you guys on watching to see what we're doing. Before we start tonight, I do want to take just a minute to thank Quest Jewelers from Merrifield, Virginia. Quest Jewelers is let me tell you, folks, they have some fine stuff, quality jewelry there. The holidays are coming up. So I strongly suggest you go and take a look at their website, questjewelers.com, or give them a call on the phone and tell them you'd like to see something, maybe even that you saw on the website. But give them a call. We've got some beautiful stuff. I can tell you personally, I have actually designed and had custom pieces made for my wife there, and they're absolutely beautiful. So check it out for those of you that might be in the market for that special someone. I also want to thank Nationwide IT Services. NIS is a service-disabled veteran-owned small business owned by retired Army Warrant Officer C.K. Park. C.K. and his crew, and I have to give them credit, and I do on every show. C.K. hires about 40 to 50% of his employee base are all veterans, and they are professional veterans able to provide your business with any type of service you may need, whether it's training, IT security, performance management, program management, development, whatever your business needs, he's got a staff there that can help you. So give CK and his crew a call, and I guarantee you they will be able to help you out. So I want to get into tonight's show and talk about our guest tonight. And we actually have three great veterans on this evening. And among them, they have a combined over 60 years of service to the nation. And of course, veterans are serving their community is the title of the show because each one of them continue to serve even though they're no longer in uniform. So let's welcome our guest on tonight. We have first retired Lieutenant Colonel Justin or Jerry Martin from the Marine Corps. We also have Chief Warrant Officer 4 Wayne Moore from the U.S. Navy. And we also have retired Master Sergeant Mark Meier from the Marine Corps as well. So, gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. We enjoy being able to give our stories and to show the community what we do out here.
Well, I just briefly want to tell the audience just a little bit about each one of you before we talk a little bit about your military service. So, Jerry, I know that you're from Alexandria, Louisiana. Jerry's a fellow in the back with the white hat in the background back there with the what is that? You got rolled up your booklet in your hand there.
The booklet in my hand happens to be the parade program for this year. So we're
okay, all right.
At the end of the program.
So Jerry, I want to welcome you and to our audience. Jerry came up to Prince William County, Virginia, as a young 18-year-old Marine from Louisiana, and was assigned to Quantico for his first assignment. And we'll talk a little bit more about his military service as we go. But Jerry also he has a bachelor's degree from Louisiana State University and a master's of education from George Mason. And he's also done some postgraduate work at the University of Virginia. So we're going to get to talk to Jerry just a little bit more in a few minutes. I also want to give you a little more introduction to Chief Warrant Officer Wayne Moore. Wayne is the gentleman sitting on the left with the dark hat on. And Wayne is you were born and raised in the Virgin Islands and graduated from the Morris High School in Bronx, New York. And the interesting thing, well, I'm going to ask him about in a little while, is he started his military career in the Army and then switched over to the Navy. Why on earth you would do that, I will never know. But we're going to give you a chance to explain. Wayne also has a Master of Science in Government Acquisition and a Bachelor of Science in Social Science and an associate degree in Business and Marketing. And all three of these gentlemen, of course, have attended numerous military schools during their career. Finally, last but not least, of course, is Master Sergeant retired Mark Meier. Mark was born and raised in Rome, New York, and graduated from Vernon Verona Sherrill Central High School in 1985. So that makes you a youngster to me, Mark.
I'm a youngster here too.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is that Mark is the first military musician that we've had on the show. So, we want to find out some things from Mark and what he did during his career. Mark has a Bachelor of Science degree from Liberty University. And as I mentioned earlier, all three of these gentlemen have amassed over 60 years of service to the military. So before we start, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for your service. That is that is just incredible, the time that you have given to the nation. So we want to thank you.
Thank you for yours.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you on. And I just want to take a few minutes to talk to each of you. And of course, when I'm talking to one of you, if the other two want to chime in on something, please feel free. But Mark, I'll kind of start with you. And you had that interesting story. You started a music career at Ithaca College and then ended up being accepted in the Commander Zone in the Marine Corps. Can you tell us a little bit of how your career started, how you got into that, and some of what you did during your career?
Well, sure. I've always done the junior drum and bugle corps route when I was growing up, and I went to School of Music at Ithaca College for the 3 years, and the last year got very difficult, pay-wise. I couldn't really afford that last year, and somebody said, "Hey, why don't you try out for the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps?" And I did, and I was one of the 200 auditionees for that role.
So what does that tell the audience? What that means? What that entitles? I mean,
well, there's auditions that go out all across the country for certain positions within the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps, and there were 200 applicants that tried out for that one position here on the East Coast, and I was one of the two out of the 200 applicants.
Yeah, so that's pretty.
It's pretty difficult to get into.
Yeah, pretty selective program. So I also understand that you were an instructor, a musical instructor during your career as well.
Yes, sir. As we get older within the unit itself, of course, you're learning lots of things, and I was able to utilize my my musical background at Ithaca College because I was to become a teacher at one time, and they picked up on that, and I started doing the instruction part. First, I was the section leader of the 3rd Soprano line in the Drum and Bugle Corps, and then finally graduated to become the high brass and the horn line instructor for the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps.
Yeah, I'd imagine that was a pretty interesting career. I mean, I know you spent some time in the Commandant's Zone as well, and then finally retired from active duty in 2008.
Yeah.
And so I know your wife, you guys have a home up here in Northern Virginia, and have been serving in the community here. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the work that Mark and Wayne and Jerry have been doing here within the community here in a few minutes. So Wayne, let me switch over to you, because I got to hear a little bit about this story about you going into the Army and then switching to the Navy. How did that happen?
Well, like I said, I was in my senior year in the islands. and I wanted to actually be a veterinarian.
Oh.
So my brother was stationed in New York, so I came up to go to school. I did my last year in the Bronx, and I went to Fordham University to try to get into their program there. And the young lady says to me, "Well, you're 18 and you didn't sign up for the draft." I have no idea what the draft is. So she said, "Well, we can put you in college, but you're going to get drafted and you got to go into the Army." So I called my mom and I said, "I got to go into the Army, so let me get that out of the way." So I volunteered for the Army. But being the youngest of four brothers heading to Vietnam, when I got to Japan, I got diverted to Korea, and I did a year up on the DMZ. My mom passed away right about the end of my tour overseas. So we came home, buried her, and then I ended up at Fort Stewart, Georgia, where I finished out my Army term, and I got out. And 10 years later, I decided I want to go back into the military, but they told me I was too old. So the Navy said, "Hey, didn't you just tell me you were an odds vet?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, he don't know what he's doing." So he says, "I'm going to get you in the Navy if you want to go in the Navy." So I said, "Yes, I got kids to feed." So took the test, went to some captain, 06. He signed off my age as a reduction for my 6 years of prior service.
Oh,
And I
okay.
ended up doing 30 in the Navy.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I did 21 in the Army. And of course, I got injured when I was a first sergeant, had to have surgery. So that kind of cut the rest of my career short. But, I can't imagine 30 years. I know a few guys that did 30 years that, I came up with. But that's one heck of a career. I thought it was interesting that you served on the USS Nimitz during your career.
Yes. Well, my specialty was operations, CIC, Combat Information Center.
Yeah.
And in order to be effective, well-rounded, I did every major platform there is in the Navy.
Yeah.
Every one of them, starting from a DD all the way up. I don't have a cruise on my resume, but I serve on cruises for special operations.
Okay. All right. Well, I know during your career that you served in a number of deployments all over from the Western Pacific, the Persian Gulf. So I know the Navy kept you pretty busy during the time that you were in. And I don't want to slight you guys. All of you are well decorated. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about your decorations because I know that you're here to talk about some other things that you guys are doing to promote Veterans Affairs. But I just wanted to mention that to the audience. All three of our guests tonight were heavily decorated during their career. And, of course, we're so proud to have veterans like this on our show. So, Jerry, let me get to you for a minute here. You were from Alexandria, Louisiana, and
The home of Camp Polk.
yeah, we used to call it the mosquito capital of the United States.
That's right, Camp Polk.
Yeah, that's what the Army called it. We called it the mosquito capital.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and you started out your career very young, and then of course I know you went right to Vietnam and served as a platoon leader and an infantry rifle commander as well in Vietnam, didn't you?
I did, yes. 1968. And then in 1969, I was there and I was flying in the level reconnaissance airplanes doing intelligence work and
yeah. I mean, I know that. When I looked on there and saw that you were flying aerial missions as well, I thought to myself, here's a guy that's been pretty rounded throughout his career, serving on the ground and then flying aerial missions and surveillance. And so how long were you in Vietnam though?
a little less than 2 years. And then I came back to the States, waived my overseas control date, and then I was sent aboard ship. So I was a seagoing Marine for a while too. I spent a year with the flagship of the Sixth Fleet. An admiral by the name of I.C. Kidd was the commander of the fleet. And I was the honors officer, the guy that had to go out and give honors and ceremonies to the visiting dignitaries. Like at that time, it was President Nixon, also Prince Rainier and Grace Kelly, and some of those kind of people came aboard our ship. And I was the one responsible for parading the Marine Honor Guard as the officer.
So I just want to make a comment here, because you guys are a classic example of what we see in communities all over the United States. And, you know, an example of, you know, the guests that I've had on my show. I mean, here we're looking at, you know, 2 retired Marines and a retired Navy guy. You guys are all sharing camaraderie at the VFW or at the DAV. And, you know, you're now looking at trying to give back to the communities that you live in. And I know all of you have lived around this area for quite a long time as you settled your families here, your wife and kids. And, you know, I just think it's a testament to every veteran that I have on the show always talks about wanting to give something back, even though they served, you know, whether it was 4 years, 3 years, or they served a career of 20 plus. There's that mindset that you all have. And, you know, I am just so honored to be a part of that community and to see guys like you out there, you know, around our communities doing the things you're doing. So what I want to do, though, is we're going to take just a short break. And when we come back, guys, I'd like for you to share with us what you are doing in the community from your VFW post with vetpar2.org and the veterans parades and your community activities. So we'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. All right, welcome back, everyone. Of course, you've been watching the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner with your host, retired Army First Sergeant Paul Holbert. And of course, we've got three great guests tonight: retired Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Martin from the Marine Corps, retired Warrant Officer 4 Wayne Moore from the Navy, and of course, last but not least, is retired Master Sergeant from the Marine Corps, Mark Meier. And we've been just chatting a little bit about, just briefly about their careers and what they were doing. But I know they're not here to really talk about themselves. I know that. And I'm sure you guys are just ready to talk about vetpar2.org. And, I have to tell you, living here in Manassas, Virginia myself, I have attended about 4 of the Veterans Day parades here. And I got to tell you, they're really something to see. So if you would, and you guys share the mic however you want to do it, if you would, tell us, because I know you're each chairman, working on the projects there on the board. But if you would, tell us how you got going into this and what you guys are doing and the parade coming up.
I want to say that this started way back in 2009. Yeah, 2009, to honor World War II veterans, because we knew that we weren't going to have them for much longer. That very first parade was the one that started it all, and it was the American Legion here in Manassas that really put together the funds, and it was the membership of Post 10 that did all the volunteering, and we reached out to our fellow veteran service organizations to help out. And that's when we started seeing the collaboration between all of the whole veteran community, even way back then. And we kind of separated a little bit from the American Legion and went out on our own and developed VetPar Inc., which is what our website is that you keep mentioning there. And that's where we keep all of our parade history and our operations for the upcoming parades, and the way that we communicate to the community out there. We get all of our participants through the website. We get all of our donations now through the website. So it's a great tool to help us to make all these parades very successful.
Yeah. So Wayne, I understand you guys change the parade each year and have a different focus. And I know Mark said you started with the World War II vets, and then in my discussions with Jerry, I know you guys then went on to Korean War, I think, and on to Vietnam. So can you share a little bit of that? And I understand Mark said, you were concerned about losing the World War II vets. So I'm assuming, Wayne, that's why you guys started going in chronological order.
Well, to be quite honest, this is my second year with the VetPar organization, and Jerry was the one that got me involved. When I retired, not knowing how long I was going to be around, I made it my purpose in life to help vets.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for the last 10 years. And we had the Vietnam vets. This year we're going with the Coast Guard, and we do try to get every major, first the services, then major organizations where the individuals either serve in the military or do something outstanding for the community.
Yeah.
Much further than that, Jerry can probably give his input on it.
Yeah. So Jerry, give us a little more history about this, if you would.
Well, Paul, as Mark was saying, it started back in 2009, and obviously everybody's very emotional about World War II veterans. I mean, they, in my estimation, are the gold standard for those of us who came after them. They're the ones that, we use that very trite expression, the greatest generation, but when you stop and think about what they have actually accomplished you realize it's not a trite expression, it's a reality.
Yeah.
And these were our fathers, our uncles, and nowadays children and current servicemen's grandfathers. So we always felt those people had to be recognized first. But then we started realizing that many of the World War II veterans later on served in Korea because they were called back.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that they were covered. In my experience, I was very adamant about doing something for Vietnam veterans because that parade gave us the opportunity to give Vietnam veterans their own parade, which they had never gotten. And it was
Yeah.
their welcome home to our community. And then, of course, we did Desert Storm, we did Iraq. We tried to honor women, especially women now, because they're such an important part of our military. We did one full parade that honored women. And then, you know, I think there's this hesitancy sometimes for people to recognize veterans who did not serve in some active campaign.
Yeah.
So there was a conscious effort that we were also going to recognize Cold War veterans. Those people who really didn't have a choice in what they did, they raised their hand like each of us did and said, I'm willing to serve wherever you send me.
Yeah.
Of course, they're the ones that fill the gaps for many of those vacancies that existed for those people because they were overseas. And I'm sure for those of us who actually were in active campaigns, you realize that probably only one out of every four guys ever really did anything as far as combat action. But the other people are the ones, they were the ones that kept him there. And they were the ones that provided the support so they could actually do what they needed to do in active operations. And then we realized that, you know, there is a tremendous amount of service pride. So there was a conscious decision that we were going to recognize each of the services. This year, our parade on November 4th, which is when our parade is, November 4th, Saturday before Veterans Day, we're going to recognize the Coast Guard. And it's really kind of, I think, a very, I think, I'm trying to think how to say this. When you can actually recognize somebody that's in your community, who has grown up in your community, and then progressed through the military up to the rank of Captain 06. And this year, our Grand Marshal is a young man who went to grammar school in Manassas. He went to middle school in Manassas. He graduated from high school in Manassas. He got a scholarship to the Coast Guard Academy. He became a senatorial liaison in his capacity in the Coast Guard. And he's in the Coast Guard Hall of Fame because he's one of the very few pilots who was ever awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for peacetime heroism.
Wow.
So these are the kind of people we're really trying to showcase. Organizations we're trying to showcase to our community.
So the parade this year, you said, is what date did you say? I'm sorry.
It's
November 4th.
November 4th, and of course it's here in Old Town Manassas, right?
Old Town Manassas,
Yeah.
11 sharp.
Yeah, I have to tell you, my wife and I live right here, and I'm being a veteran, retired military guy myself, and a combat veteran. That's one of the things I love where we live, because I can literally walk out of my townhome and walk right out to the sidewalk and just watch. And that's what I've done when I've watched the Veterans Day parades, the holiday parades they have here. And I have to tell you, the years that I've been out there to see the Veterans Day parades here in Manassas have just been outstanding. And I know your website, and make sure I got that right. Is it vetpar2.org? Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I want to make sure people know about it and they have the opportunity to go there and see what you're doing and see what the parade is about. And like you said, there's so many opportunities there on the website to either donate, volunteer your time, to help out with preparation, or to help out during the parade, keeping people watching the parade safe. Just anything that people want to do, they have a chance to go to the Vet2 or the vetpar2.org, and they can sign up and show up to help you guys with the parade.
And I'm kind of glad that you said preparation, because we start planning for this parade every year quite early. And it starts with our board meeting in January, and usually we start kicking off the regular parade meetings in March or April. And to raise funds and get everything operationally, good to go, we have to start that early and make sure everything is locked on. So, like this month, I think this is probably I won't say the easiest. But we definitely got our stuff together now, after 15 years of doing this parade. And it seems kind of easy right now, but when we start off the year in preparation for the upcoming parade, I have to tell you, it's hard getting those bodies to come in and just be a part of us and learn what we do. Because we'd like some younger people coming in and teach them what's going on. Because we're not going to be able to do it forever, but we need to pass that baton sooner or later.
Paul, if I could interject something too.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I hope everybody realizes that this Veterans Parade is open to any veteran. There are no restrictions. As long as you're a veteran, you're welcome to join in this parade. I mean, if you want to march in the parade, all you have to do is come down. We'll find a place. We'll put you in the appropriate place or with the appropriate service unit, and you can march and be part of a parade. That way, no veteran can ever say, I wasn't part of a parade.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to indicate too that we don't have any titles. I know you put Lieutenant Colonel and CW4 and Master Sergeant.
Yeah.
We don't have titles, and none of us are seeking any titles. We're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to honor veterans in this community. So I hope that people say, well, I don't want to get involved in that. It's because, it's the old officers that are always going to be giving the orders, or the top sergeants that are going to be telling me what to do again. And that's not the case at all. We all work together for a common goal, and that is to have a successful parade and the community to enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you make, Jerry, is that, we only introduce you guys by your rank to identify you to the audience and respect you for what you achieved. But you're absolutely right. In these activities and organizations, people should be able to come and feel comfortable, saying, hey, I'd like to go volunteer. I'd like to show up. But that's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, the good thing is I'm really looking forward to it this year, because this year I plan to be here while I'll be able to see the parade. Not able to walk in it yet. I've had both knees replaced in the not too distant past, so I'm still kind of healing up from that and can't do a lot of walking yet. But I plan to be here.
Space in one of our Jeeps for you.
Well, I plan to be here for a few more years to come, and
all right, I'm going to hold you to it.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, because I'm also retiring from my second career at the end of this year, and I'm done working and I'll be fully retired. So I'll have a lot more time to do some things. And I'd love to see a little more about what you guys are doing. Jerry, maybe stay in touch with you guys some and find out if there's some things I may be able to do in the future to help out. Just like we're encouraging the audience, you guys really need to go check out that website and see what's there. You see what they're doing, see what's available for you. If you want to donate, if you don't have time, but you can donate, go to the website. They have the donation programs. And please, I'm sure that you guys can still use volunteers even up to this point for the parade on the 6th.
Let me say one other thing about that donation page. I hope that everybody realizes there's no money made off of this parade. Everything that we collect goes into supporting this parade, and to include this booklet. There's a souvenir booklet that we provide free to all of the people who attend the parade. So that's really our major expense, is us trying to get this published. And in this book, there are veterans who are featured. There are veterans' names in here, both in memoriam as well as active duty veterans. So that way families can see a deceased veteran, a father, a family member's name, or if somebody, wants to acknowledge the fact that their son or daughter is now currently serving, or an individual says, I want people to know in this community that I'm in the military. This is an opportunity for them to be published in this book, and it's given free. That's the majority of what the donations go to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and having, like I said, having seen several of them, these parades are very well done, and I think they're very respectful of the military and the veterans, and by what you guys are doing. So, Mark, I just have to ask you: are you gonna pull out your instrument and do a little playing in the parade this year?
I have in the past, but not this year. I'll be busy at the front of the parade with setting everybody up and getting them on the way so that the crowds can enjoy the rest of the parade.
Well, let me just ask you guys before we close up the show, just very briefly here. And so I'll start with you, Wayne, if you don't mind. Through all your experiences, and this will give Jerry and Mark an opportunity to kind of think something through. So I'm putting Wayne on the spot here first, I guess you could say. But Wayne, through all your experience and what you're doing now, if there was just one thought that you'd like to share with our veterans out here or the audience in general, what would that thought be?
That thought would be, remember the veterans. Whether you are presently a vet or a civilian, when it comes to recognizing the veterans on Veterans Day, my message would be to the veterans: if the people, the community you serve, is coming out to congratulate you, recognize you, show up and return their courtesy.
Yeah.
It's a good thing for us to let the public know that we appreciate their coming out, because as Jerry said earlier, the Vietnam era veterans did not have it good.
Yeah.
Please, show up and thank the people that's thanking you for your service.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about you, Jerry? What would your thought be?
Well, I guess I taught high school here for 20 years after I retired. My second career was as a public school teacher here in this community. To me, that was probably one of the most rewarding things that I ever did. And watching young men and women go into the military, several of which went to the service academies. Regrettably, several were also wounded, and one was actually killed in Iraq. But I guess I never forgot the fact that George Washington said, over 200 years ago, to the troops when he dismissed the troops, that you're leaving the service, but never forget you're a citizen first. And I think that's it. I think that if veterans realize that, yes, their service is important, but that service prepared them to be good citizens.
Yeah.
And to return that same, responsibility to not only their generation, but future generations, of saying, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and this is what we'd like to see this country be in the future.
Yeah, I know growing up, I always heard my mom talk about, my dad was a veteran and killed on active duty when I was very young. I was 5 years old. And my mom used to talk about the importance of remembering not only him, what he did, but, our responsibilities from that. She used to use that as a talking point to teach me and my brothers about our responsibilities. So yeah, I can understand exactly what you're saying, because I had to live that when I was growing up with my mother. So what about you, Mark? What would you share?
Probably the best advice I can give is, even though there are five or six different services out there now, we're all brothers. We all fight for the same team. So don't be looking for that, service to supply your community service or whatever. Don't look for a specific service. You don't need to. We joke amongst ourselves between the services and all that, but you have a lot more brothers and sisters out there than you think.
Yeah.
It's not service specific.
No.
We all get along and we get along very well. But yeah, they're all my brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I had a younger brother that served 8 years in the Air Force. And of course, as an Army first sergeant, I used to teach my soldiers about wearing Air Force gloves. In other words, sticking their hands in their pockets. And so my brother and I used to go at one another, all good natured, whenever we had the opportunity. But you're right. We're all one community. We're here to help one another and share with one another. Well, guys, I got to tell you, I'm really, really honored to have you three on tonight. Not only for the careers that you've had in the military to share with us a little bit, but for the work that you're doing in the community here in Northern Virginia and around Manassas and the surrounding area. You guys have dedicated your lives to this community in this area, even after your military service. And I just want to thank you very much for that. Myself being a member of this same community, because that means I get to reap the reward still of some of the things that you're doing here, including the upcoming parade on the 6th. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show tonight. And I want to remind our audience, make sure you go to vetpar2.org, find out about the parade, see what's there, see what you can do, how you can donate, how you can contribute. And by all means, if you're up around this area, please come to Manassas on that day and see the parade so you can see the work that these guys are doing for the community. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing on the show. And I didn't get a chance to tell you before, but I'm going to ask you, once I go to my closing, if you would, don't go off your computer yet. Just hold on, because I'm gonna bring you back on for just a couple minutes, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, and for the rest of our audience out there, Cece, thank you so much. I knew she would find this. It's something interesting here that I found, and I thought this was important because I did not even know about this until recently. The Survivor Benefit Plan, many of you probably know if you're veterans and served, if you're retired, is a program that the military services have that allow you to contribute a small portion of your retirement so that when you finally die, you can leave a portion of your retirement to whether it's your surviving spouse, your children, whoever it is. And it used to be once you declined that, when you retired, you could never go back and try to reinstate it. Well, they now have, under the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, they now have a Survivor Benefit Plan open season. And there's the website there on dfas.mil. Go in and take a look at it. I guarantee you it's worth your time to look. Now, of course, there is a cost. It's just like buying back your time from the military if you work civil service for the government. But they can explain to you how it's done. And I've already called just to get some more details. You can leave up to 55% of your retired pay when you die to a surviving spouse or family or children, and they can give you the details. The only thing is you're kind of running out of time here. And like I said, I just found out about this. You would have to submit this before January 1st. So please go on the website, take a look, see what's there, and see if it's right for you, because it's an excellent opportunity to help take care of your loved ones after you're gone if you have not done so. So I want to thank the audience for joining us tonight on the GoingSoloMedia.com, the WGSN-DB Going Solo Veterans Corner. And I hope to see you on our next show. And again, I want to thank our guest tonight. Outstanding conversation. And please, again, go to vetpar2.org, take a look and see what you can find out about the parade and how you can participate. Thank you, and we hope to see you on our next show.